Hello and welcome to my shop. My name is George and I'm coming to you from Chelsea, Quebec. I've been away from the internet for a little while. Some of the reason was because I wanted it to look like I was growing a beard and not that I had just forgotten to shave. So here I am, I'm back. Today I'm going to make some shoe moldings. Years and years ago I decided to upgrade the look of the place, and so I went around the house, mostly upstairs, and replaced the door jambs, the doors, the baseboards, shoe moldings, casings, right the way around the house with some natural pine. And at one point I ran out of steam, and there were still some shoe moldings left to be installed, but I let the job lapse. That was years and years ago. It's time to get back to work and finish the job. And so the next step is to make some shoe moldings. Why don't you join me? I'll make some shoe moldings and take you along on the trip. One of the problems in letting a project lapse is when you resume it, the store might no longer carry the material that you need. And that's what happened to me. The shoe moldings, for instance, you can't get any longer. Also, the baseboard material itself is a lot thinner and it's just not attractive. Now, in that time since, in between temporarily suspending the project and resuming it, during that time, my skills as a woodworker improved. And so when I realized that I could no longer buy these shoe moldings, I said, no problem, I'll just shape my own. So I bought Roman OG from Lee Valley. This one here is the largest of the ones that they offer. It's got a full inch of height of cutting edge. And then of course the molding that you cut with this can be considerably larger than an inch, because some of the usable face is whatever rides along the bearing here. So this bit will give me the shape that I want. Now, it's not a perfect match to the original, but that's okay because it's going into a different part of the house, so there won't be any joints of old to new. Okay, so I bought the bit, and I also bought a couple of lengths of 1x6s. Now, anyone who knows what it means to have a 1x6 knows that the thickness is not an inch and the width is not 6 inches. A 1x6 is only 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'll illustrate what I'm going to do with this 1x3, just because it'll look goofy trying to manipulate a 10-foot long 1x6 in front of the camera here. So typically what happens when you want to shape some molding is you will use the router bit in a router table, and you will offer the edge of the workpiece. So 3/4 of an inch is not tall enough. So instead of offering the edge, I'll be offering the face, and I'll be cutting away probably about 1/8 of an inch at a time until I bottom out against the bearing. That'll give me one strip, and then I'll turn the 1x6 over and repeat the process on this edge. So that's the plan. Now, while I have you here, let me just go off on a bit of a tangent and show you what you can do with those leftover bits of casing and baseboard that you'll end up with. Put some miters in them, and you can make these open-ended boxes that can store all kinds of things. In this case, they're storing envelopes, and these envelopes have the extra strips of sandpaper. So I take a sheet and I slice it into 4 sections. One of them goes into the sanding block, and then the other 3 get parked in these envelopes. You can see they're labeled with sanding grits. So you get these lovely decorative boxes from leftover bits of casing or shoe molding or baseboard. In the previous scene, I didn't express myself well, and I ended up giving you the impression that I was going to do the routing increment by increment. That part is still true, but do it until I had completely done one of the edges. Then I'd flip the board over and do the second edge. That's not how it's going to be done. How it's going to be done, set the router to the shallow cut first, and then I'll run the boards, first edge, second edge, move on to the second board, third edge, fourth edge. Then I'll increment the depth of the cut, and then go back to doing the first edge and the second edge, third edge, and fourth edge. So all four boards will be done using the same process. Now, there's a danger to doing it that way, and that's that if I've miscalculated or poorly planned the process, then I'll end up with four ruined edges. So as a bit of a safeguard to that, I'm going to take this narrow, short board first and run it through the process. If it comes out okay, then I'll move on to my proper work pieces. So that first pass was about 1/4 of an inch deep. Now, as I reveal more and more of the bit, then a higher and higher amount of edge is going to be cutting. So for that reason, I'm going to ease up on the increments and try to get about an eighth of an inch at a time. Now, if I back the fence off by 1/4 of an inch over here, that will reveal an eighth of an inch at the center. So that's how I'm going to make the increment. And just make sure that I haven't snagged the edge on the fence. Okay. So I'll make the next increment by moving this end of the fence. Again, a 1/4 inch here should give me 1/8 of an inch at the bit. And once again, I'll check to make sure that I haven't snagged it. So I made a few more passes. I'm getting close to the end. Now, as I was making these passes, I was keeping an eye on the flat portions of the two sides, making sure that I had enough of a flat portion to register against the fence. And of course I was careful to deliver pressure to the upper part here where it's flat on the fence side. Now I can see by the bearing that I've got a little more than 1/16 of an inch to go. So now I'm going to back the fence off to the bearing. And there, that should be about right. And I'll just check it with a straight edge. Okay, the bearing is a little proud. Yeah, it's pretty well dead on. So I made a pass at this final position, and there's still the occasional small ripple in the face of this, and I'll take care of that by leaving it at this position and then just making a couple of cleanup passes, and it should be perfect. So I'm right close now to finishing. There's maybe one more cleanup pass to do. Again, that's with the fence unchanged in position. I brought this is now the original from years and years ago, and I can see that I've got enough room here for the kerf of a saw blade, so I'll be able to get both pieces out of this. Of course, this is a test piece, but I'll confirm that this is a good height to set the table saw at in order to liberate these pieces. From the larger work pieces, I should be able to get a couple of passes on each of the edges. We'll see how it comes out. Well, there they are, sawn apart. I think they're going to be great when they're finished. They're not that dissimilar to the original, and of course, since they'll be in different parts of the house, there won't be any way to compare the old with the new. They'll be terrific. So before presenting the work pieces to the router, I'm going to joint the two edges. A couple of reasons for that. One is that I want the moldings in the end to be perfectly straight. I don't want to have them rise and fall with changes in the curvature. So I'll get rid of that by jointing the edges. The second reason is that I want the edges to be crisp and clean, so get rid of any chips or dents along the way, because some of these are going to be show edges in the end. So if the board is presented this way to the router fence, then this edge at the end of the routing, this edge will be a show edge, or this corner, I mean, will be a show corner. And this corner down here will also be a show corner. So I want them to be clean at the end. Now, So I don't know if you caught that, but there was a definite curve to this plank. It stopped cutting in the middle. So another couple of passes will get rid of that. Somehow I had the good fortune not to change the setting from the test piece. So I'm ready to cut off the routed edges without having to fuss with the setting. Off the table saw, the remaining pieces, so the middle parts, after I cut off the two strips, are straight enough. So just a light planing to clean up the saw marks is all that's needed here. So I took the 1x6s that had the two edges routed and cut off the strips of shoe molding on the table saw. That left me with two middle sections. Off camera, I took the middle sections and routed them, one edge and the other edge by increments, as I had done before. So now I have 2 more strips from each of the 2 work pieces. So 4 more shoe moldings to cut off on the table saw.
So the yield was great. From the 2 workpieces, I got 8 10-foot long lengths, almost all of them completely clear. And then the shorter pieces in the foreground, those were from the test piece, which I'll use to nail down the finish to try to get a good match with the existing baseboards. And then also cut them into some smaller pieces to make sanding blocks out of them.
One of the properties I really like about the Roman ogee is how its shape complements itself. So here's a couple of cut-offs, some nasty bits that I'm getting rid of. And if you turn one piece around and nestle it up against the other piece, you can see that the shape complements itself perfectly over some of the overall shape. And what that means is all you need to do is stick down a piece of sandpaper to one of these sections, and you have a perfectly shaped sanding block to get rid of blemishes and occasional ripples that you'll find in strips of molding. So this seems like a really good spot to end the video. The rest of this is going to be specific to my own needs, trying to match the color of the fresh pine to the pine that's aged now for some 10 years. So I'll try a couple of undercoats of shellac, either white shellac or amber, and then go with a top coat of either a natural pine stain or this one here, Ipswich Pine. Sounds like a promising blend. So I'll fool around with that until I get a good match. The alternative would be to wait 10 years until the fresh pine catches up in darkness to the old pine, but I think I'll go with this instead. It's the holiday season right now, so happy holidays to everyone watching. And make some time for your passion, and if you can share it, even better. Bye from me for now.